待っていた。いいな、この表現は認識の相違がある。待たせてしまっただろうか。私の名はシオン。
The very one responsible not just for sending us off on this crazy adventure, but the catalyst for everything that would happen before it. If you're new here, the goal is to provide you, the viewer, with a richer experience by exploring the things that make the PSO2 universe what it is. My name's Xiao, and I'll be your lore keeper. Today, we're talking about Xion, and by extension, her younger brother, Xiao. Since these two are so influential, it only seems fitting that we cover them together. We'll be focusing on their origins and the events that help shape who they are as individuals. We like to give credit to the fine folks who give these characters life through their voices. In the Japanese version, both characters are voiced by the legendary Megumi Ogata. Fans of Yu-Gi-Oh! And Evangelion will no doubt recognize that name. In the English dub, Xion is voiced by Cindy Robinson, and Zach Aguilar lends his voice to Xiao. You might recognize Cindy as the voice of Amy Rose from the Sonic franchise over the past decade. Fans of One Punch Man might recognize Zach as the voice of Genos. To say our time in ARCs has been interesting so far would be an understatement, and this is just our first day. To add to the weirdness, we meet this strange woman who looks like a scientist of some sort. She tells us she's been expecting us, and that her name is Xion. We get the impression that there's more to this lady than meets the eye. For one thing, we're the only ones that can see her. She seems to need our help with something, but won't say what or why exactly. Maybe we've seen each other before. She gives us the precognizant divergence matrix, or matter board as it's known in the Japanese version. This was a gameplay mechanic used to advance the story in the first 3 episodes. Each node represented a specific task you had to complete, like finding a specific item or reviewing a certain cutscene. Just as events in our universe have seemingly infinite possibilities, the same could be said for that of Oracle. So the divergence matrix works like this. It collects divergences in the streams of time and manifests new possibilities. So what's our first time-bending task? Going back to the beginning of our qualification exam on Nefarious to rescue an unconscious Matoi. So it turns out we're not the only ones who can see Xion. Matoi follows us to our usual meeting spot and notices someone standing in front of us. This doesn't bother Xion, who tells us that all 3 of us are connected. Matoi says there's something familiar about her. Our journey leads us to the Sacred Dragon Altar, where Sarah wants to introduce us to someone. His name is Xiao, who introduces himself as Xion's younger brother. He's got a job for us. He wants us to get to the bottom of what Luther's been up to this whole time. Luther wasn't just in charge of the Central Research Division. That was just the cover for his shadow government using ARCs as his puppets, even the Council of 6. Since Luther has made his move, Xion bids us come to the Oracle Mothership alongside Matoi, where all would be revealed. But those who work in the shadows will do whatever it takes to ensure their deeds aren't brought to the light. No sooner do we arrive, a transmission comes in. The Oracle Mothership is under attack. Regius then appears on a screen and issues the absolute order, code Abyss. It's a special mind control message broadcast to every ARCS operative to seek and destroy the threat to the Oracle Mothership. But this time, we're the traitor. We're the threat. The entirety of ARCS is brought to bear against us. But Kuna would blow the lid on Luther's schemes and break the order. Now that Luther has made his move, Xion would finally reveal the truth of not just her origins, but everything leading up to this point. Xion recounts the tale of the Photoners, their rise to prominence, and their inevitable downfall. In the beginning, there was a planet made entirely of water. This planet would birth an intelligence powerful enough to calculate everything in the entire universe. The very incarnation of knowledge itself. A little thing called the Akashic Records. Well, not quite. Xion was actually more of a librarian of sorts. She was one of the only entities capable of accessing and managing the records. But that subject is a pretty deep rabbit hole, so we'll save that for another time. So one day this world was visited by those who had come to be known as the Photoners, and they'd give it the name Xion. Xion abandoned the role of being a mere observer, and blessed them with the knowledge of using photons as energy. Xion wasn't alone anymore, and this made her very happy. Xion would assume the form of the first person to come in contact with her. At Xion's request, the Photoners built an outer shell around the planet as part of their mothership. She wanted to be there to see all that they would achieve. So you could say this was a mutually beneficial relationship. The Photoner's sphere of influence would span the entire universe, and they'd eventually try their hand at cloning. So they'd eventually try to clone Xion, and well, we all know how that turned out. Xion's lamentation of her hand in these events, and her desire to make things right, served as the impetus for enlisting our aid. But Luther awaited us at the core of the mothership alongside Xion's physical form. Luther wanted to merge with Xion, seizing that boundless knowledge for himself. Xion and the remnants of the Photoner's spirits would restrain him though, allowing us to escape before the entire mothership was consumed. Now that Xion is gone, and Luther has become one with the mothership, you would think this would spell game over for Arx. Well, Xion had one final trump card. So this is where Xiao comes in. This is where he'd step in and take the reins, bringing with him a brand new mothership from another timeline. There's more to Xiao than just being Xion's younger brother. He's actually another Xion, created by Xion. So perhaps the term son is more appropriate. Xiao has the same omniscience and space-time bending powers as Xion, but his calculation ability isn't quite on par with hers. He's not dialed into the Akashic records like Xion was. He would use this power to send us back to the point of Elder's awakening to save Zeno, and send us back 10 years to investigate Matoi's origins. Personality-wise, Xion and Xiao are definitely polar opposites. Xion is the more reserved type, and Xiao is the more boisterous, outspoken type. The majority of his social skills were picked up from hanging out with Sarah, effectively making her like a sister to him. Just like siblings in the real world, they are prone to bickering, but do care deeply for one another. Xiao temporarily takes over Arx, helping Ulk reform its organizational structure, placing the old Council of Six in charge of the new departments. The profound darkness and persona were sealed away in a time loop, but this was a band-aid fix. Once the new administrative backbone was set up, Xiao went back to the mothership to figure out a more permanent solution. Just like Xion, Xiao wanted to make sure that Arx was provided for in his absence, so Xiao created the Sierra network to manage the Arx ships and serve as our personal operator. After the events on Earth, we reunite with Xiao, who seems a little bit different this time. The kid look didn't really fit with his position as Oracle's overseer. He does this to better understand the people around him growing older. Thanks to our exploits on Earth, Xiao is back with a plan for taking back Persona. Xiao manages to replicate the purifying powers of Hitsugi's Ame no Murakumo, but things don't go quite as expected. A black hole opens up, but something's very different about this one. It's at the point where the planet Xion once resided, at the center of the universe no less. On the other side is a fantastical world of castles, dragons, and some familiar faces. But that's outside the scope of our time together today. Don't worry though, we'll see them soon enough. Next time, we're going to the library, but this one doesn't exist in the physical or digital realm. That's right, we're delving into the occult and exploring the Akashic records. Thanks for watching, and remember, to thine own self be true. Until next time, farewell.